The statute of limitations is a law that every state has when it pertains to debt that can be collected from the original creditor or debt collector. The statute of limitation laws vary from state to state. There are certain rules that debt collectors and original creditors must abide by when it comes to the statute of limitations. But one of the things that most people don't understand about the statute of limitations is that they don't know how they're supposed to communicate with the original creditor or debt collector when it comes to initiating their rights to not have to pay a debt that is past the legal statute of limitations to collect. So a lot of people will say, okay, hey, the debt is past the legal statute of limitations. This information needs to be off my credit report. I don't have to pay you. All of these different things are thrown around on what you have to do to attack it. And what I see a lot of people do is that they're kind of confused about what they're supposed to do with the bureaus, what they're supposed to do with the creditors, and what they're supposed to do with the debt collectors, and how they're supposed to communicate with them. All right, that's gonna be our topic of this video. My name is Stephen A. Williams. I'm the president and founder of the creditrepairshop.com. I help busy people and busy families repair their credit and increase their credit scores using my 8-point validation process and my 2-phase settlement process. So let's get into it. A lot of people do not know this, that every state has a statute of limitations. And the incredible thing about it is that every state made their own laws on how long a debt collector or an original creditor can collect a debt. And they break it down in these categories here. They have written contracts, oral contracts, promissory notes, and then they have open-end accounts. So a written contract is going to be like your automobile loan or a loan that you may take, a personal loan. A oral contract could be an agreement that you have an agreement with someone. Hey, I want to buy that from you. I'm going to make payments to you. You don't really see that a lot right now. Most people want to have it in writing, but there are still people who will make oral agreements. You may even see this with family members. And then you have promissory notes, which when you think about it on some of these fintech companies, they are actually stating that they make loans utilizing promissory notes. And I think that the reason why they're doing that is because if you look at it in certain states where a written contract could be under the statute of limitations for 3 years, but a promissory note, an actual note that a company placed that loan using that terminology, the statute of limitations could be different for that. So you can see here with Alabama, it's 3 years, but if they have a promissory note, and I see Lending Club do a lot of promissory notes with their loans, and even some of the car lenders, you could see that it brings that up to 6 years. Now, on the other hand, when you look at open-end accounts, these could be payday loans. These are your credit cards. These are your equity lines of credit. These are accounts that you can pay on, and then you can actually recharge again. And you can see here that it's 3 years. And what I've seen with most states is that the credit card or the open-end accounts is going to have a shorter term statute of limitations on there. And I believe the reason why, if I was, to kind of, when I think about it, like why would states have a shorter statute of limitations on these types of debts, the open-end accounts, rather than these other accounts, the other type of loans, is because they know that those accounts are sold. So in a way, the law was kind of adjusted for most states. I'm not saying it happened with every state, that they know that most of these companies are going to sell them off to debt collectors. And then they're giving the debt collector a couple of years, like in this state, basically they're giving the debt collector about a couple of years to try to collect on that debt, because usually original creditor is going to hold it for about a year or 6 months after it charges off, and then they will sell it off, and that's what they would do with most credit card debt. Now, so when does the clock start to tick for all of these? The clock starts to tick for all of these when the charge-off is initiated. So if you have an account and it is charged off on, let's just say 6/10 or let's just say 7/1/2023, and then you have a 3-year statute of limitations. Let's just say it's a credit card debt. You have a 3-year statute of limitations. So 3 years and 1 day, 3 years and 1 day from 7/1/2023, the charge-off date would make that account uncollectible regardless of who has that account. So if the original creditor still maintained it and it was 3 years and 1 day past the charge-off date of 7/1/2023, they cannot collect it. If a debt collector buys a debt, they cannot collect it. So now let's talk about the process. If your debt is past the legal statute of limitations, you do not have to do a debt validation. Like, what I would find a lot of people doing is they think that if their debt is past the legal statute of limitations to collect, and they know that it's past the charge off, and if you do not know, what you need to do is go and look at your credit reports. And if you don't have your credit reports, go to this website to get it. Go to your, YOUR, the number 3, scores. Go to that website right there. Your, the number 3, scores.com. And look in the comment section and look at that charge off date. And you need to look at all 3, because I've seen it happen this way where they updated properly on one that showed the charge off date, but on the other 2, it did it, a month later. That could play a huge part in crossing the line of that statute of limitations. So now the next thing is, you do not need a debt validation. So if your debt is charged off and it's past the legal statute of limitations according to the laws in your state, you do not need to do a debt validation. I get a lot of people who will come to me and they will say, I did a debt validation and the debt is past legal statute of limitations, and they did nothing. That's because they don't have to do nothing, because you're not asking them the right question. You're not asking them the right question. You need to do a notification. If your debt is past the legal statute of limitations to collect, you need to do a notification, not a debt validation. The notification is to notify them that they're attempting to collect a debt that is past the legal statute of limitations for them to be able to collect according to the laws in your state. So you need to send them a notification, not a debt validation. Another thing that people get confused is that they think that the statute of limitations for their debt to be able to be collected has something to do with TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian being able to report the information. Those are 2 different things. The statute of limitations to be able to for negative information or positive information to be on your credit report is 7 years. 7 years. Unless you do something about it. The way you do something about it is you break down the accuracy of the information that they have on there. Let me tell you the number one way to break down that accuracy. If a original creditor has a debt, it was past the legal statute of limitations, you know that you do not have to do a debt validation. You know that you don't even have to pay the debt. You just have to notify them so they can cease all their collection activities. And if the debt collector put information on your credit report, that information must be taken off your credit report. Now, it still leaves a problem. You're like, Steve, well, it still has the original creditor on there that they sold the debt to on my credit reports, and that's going to stay on there for 7 years. Let me tell you the way that you get out of that there. If your original creditor, and you have to do this with the original creditor, not with the bureaus. You have to do this with the original creditor. If the original creditor accepted a payment, for your debt, regardless if it's less, regardless if it's pennies on the dollar, they accepted payment for less. Now, let's just break this down. If you were to walk up to your credit card provider and you were to say, hey, or you signed up for one of these debt relief companies, or you're negotiating with them, and you paid that charged off account for less than what was owed, what are they going to put on your credit reports? They're going to say paid for less, right? Did you know that regardless if you pay it and it was paid for less, or they sold it to someone, another company, the terminology is that the debt was sold and they accept it for less. They will mark on your credit reports. You will see this in the comment section. It will say sold. If it says sold, then that means that you need to notify the original creditor that they need to do one of two things. You could either remove it off my credit reports because you sold the account, you accepted money for less, or you could put that it was paid for less. You can put that it was paid for less. Regardless if they put paid for less or they remove it, you're in a good situation. This is going to take work because they don't even expect you to even know that that is an option. They just like, hey, we just leave it on there. We don't care. But it can affect you for 7 years if you don't do anything about it, or for a number of years if you don't do anything about it. But this is an option for you, and it's a legal option because, and it's not a frivolous option, is that if you notify the original creditor that this account, you accepted payment on that account from an outside source. If they were, let's just say that the account was a good account, and they were to accept a payment from someone else, what would they put on there? They would say that it was paid. What if it was a good account and they accepted payment for less from you or someone else? What would they put on there? They would say it was paid for less. So it doesn't matter that it didn't come from you. That's what they don't want you to understand. That's what they don't want you to know, is that it doesn't matter that the payment didn't come from you. Their job is to report the information accurately. Only thing that they will put on there is, if that mattered, think about this. If it didn't matter that they were to notify the bureaus that it was paid for less, why do they put paid for less when someone pays for less? If it didn't matter when they didn't get the money and they just sold it to someone and they just put sold and they have charged off and then sold to a collector, why would they put the information on there? Why wouldn't they just say charged off? Because what they're doing is they're just saying a half truth. It's a half truth. What we're doing is we're saying you need to do the whole truth. You accepted payment for less. You accepted it. It doesn't matter if you accept it from me or you accept it from Mr. and Mrs. Debt Collection Company. You, original creditor, accepted it, and I want you to change the status on my credit reports to either pay for less, or you could just choose to remove it fully off of my credit reports. That's what you do. So now, let's just take a quick peek at the different statute of limitations, and I did some checking up. There has not been any changes, but if there are changes, I will let you know. Some of the most attractive statute of limitations: Alaska, Alabama, they have that 3-year, DC 3-year across the board. We got this group here that I do not feel good about, is we got Illinois, we got Indiana, we got Iowa, we got 10-year, 10-year, 10-year. Promissory note, though, remember what I said about the promissory notes? Those lending clubs, you have a shorter statute of limitations. So don't just accept your information to be a written contract. What you could do is you could look at your contract and it'll either say if it's a promissory note, and then you would know that you're in this column right here. Let's see here. We got Louisiana 3 and 3, 10-year on a promissory note. That's one of the states where we've had to assist a lot of clients where they had gotten some of those web bank loans, lending club and all of those, a lot of lawsuits in those areas. And I believe that's because they got that 10-year statute of limitations on that right there. Let's look at here. We got Mississippi, 3 across the board. That's good. Let's look at, we got Nebraska, 4 across the board. New Hampshire, 3 across the board. That's a good one there. We got North Carolina, 3, 5, 3. Here's another one here. Look at Rhode Island, 10, 10, 10. Boy, they don't want you to get out of it, right? We got West Virginia, which is one of the most poorest states, I believe. 10, 10, 10, 10. Boy, who are their legislators in that state? We got Vermont. We got another 3-year. My state of Wisconsin, 6, 6, 10 on the promissory note. 10 on the promissory note. And we got 6 on credit card. So if you have debt collectors coming after you and your debt is past legal statute of limitations to collect, I'm going to give you the letter that you need to get the job done on it. And if your debt is not past legal statute of limitations to collect and a debt collector has purchased your debt, I'm going to give you a letter that you could utilize with taking care of that. The letter is going to be, the link is below here. It's my statute of limitations letter, cease and desist collection activities letter, and debt validation letter. The instructions are right there on there. I do ask for a donation. That donation helps me monetize my time here on the channel, but it will literally save you time, money, and frustration, especially if you have a debt collector and you can stop them by using that letter, or if you know your debt is past legal statute of limitations, but you were asking the wrong question, and that's why they didn't pay attention to you. But when you send that notification letter about the statute of limitations that I'm going to give you, they will stop the collection activities. If you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, What Makes Us Different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website your3scores.com to grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports, and all 3 scores. Thank you for your time. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and founder of thecreditrepairshop.com. Please subscribe to the channel, post your questions and comments.